Welcome to Spectrum News at 4. I am Rita Inung coming to you live from Uyo. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu hails Bank of Industry over 636 billion naira loans to businesses in 2025. Vice President Kashim Shettima departs Abuja for 2026 African Union Summit in Ethiopia. Plus, Bangladesh votes in landmark polls after deadly 2024 uprising. Stay tuned for detail of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned. Our first report this hour is that President Bola Tinubu has commended the Bank of Industry, BOI, for disbursing a record of 636 billion naira in loans to businesses in 2025, describing the milestone as the highest annual financing volume in the institution's history. Tinubu said the performance was concrete evidence that his administration's macroeconomic reforms were strengthening development finance institutions and unlocking capital for productive sectors of the economy. A statement issued by his special advisor on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, said the 636 billion naira was disbursed to more than 7,000 enterprises nationwide. He reaffirmed Tinubu's administration's resolve to consolidate reform gains and expand credit access to enterprises as part of a long-term strategy to accelerate industrialization and inclusive economic growth. Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has sent his condolences to the family, friends and associates of former president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities and renowned literary scholar, Professor Emeritus Biodun Jeyifo. Tinubu's condolence message for Professor Jeyifo, who passed away yesterday, was conveyed in a statement signed by spokesperson Bayo Onaniga today. The president noted that the renowned literary scholar, critic and public intellectual will be sorely missed for his contributions to African literature, post-colonial studies, cultural theory and his masterful interpretation of works of Professor Wole Soyinka. He recalled the temperance, foresight and wisdom that Professor Jeyifo brought to the leadership of ASU over many years, providing guidance and appropriate negotiation frameworks with the government to improve working conditions and learning environment in Nigerian universities. Away from that, Vice President Kashim Shettima has departed Abuja for Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to represent President Bola Tinubu at the 2026 African Union Summit. The summit, themed Assuring Sustainable Water Availability and Safe Sanitation Systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063, will focus on advancing continental commitments towards sustainable water management, improved sanitation systems, and the broader development aspirations encapsulated in the AU's Agenda 2063 framework. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on New Media and Communications, Stanley Nkwocha, says while in Addis Ababa, the Vice President will join other African leaders at the 39th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of AU Heads of States and Government, as well as the 30th General Assembly scheduled to hold on February 14th and 15th, 2026 respectively. On the sidelines of the summit, Shettima will also participate in high-level side events and hold bilateral engagements with political and business leaders aimed at strengthening Nigeria's diplomatic, economic and strategic partnerships across the continent. And from the Green Chambers, the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts has cautioned the government against underfunding the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. It said insufficient financial support to the office could further weaken its oversight mechanism and culminate in corrupt practices. The committee gave the warning yesterday in Abuja while reviewing this year's budget proposal of the Auditor General of the National Assembly. The proposed allocation of 15.88 billion for the AOUGF represents about 0.027% of the 58.4 trillion naira federal government's budget for the year. A figure lawmakers described as grossly inadequate relative to the office's wide-ranging responsibilities. The Auditor General is constitutionally mandated to audit more than 1,000 ministries, departments, agencies and government-funded institutions. On judicial matters, Justice Obiora Egwatu has withdrawn himself from 2 cases filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) against the former Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami. Justice Egwatu, who was recently reassigned the cases by the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Tosho, said he decided to withdraw for personal reasons and in the interest of justice. The 2 cases include the multi-billion naira asset forfeiture case involving 57 properties and 8.7 billion naira money laundering charges filed by the EFCC against Malami, his wife Ashabe Bashir, and his son Abdulaziz Malami. The development occurred shortly after the civil suit for the forfeiture of the 57 properties allegedly linked to Malami was called for mention. At the resumed hearing, counsel to the EFCC, Ekele Ihenacho, SAN, informed the court that the commission had received a letter from Malami's counsel, Joseph Daudu, SAN, seeking an adjournment to Monday, February 16th. And moving now to Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has marked 36 years since Nelson Mandela's release from prison by launching a new training academy in Drakenstein Correctional Facility, where the former president was once held. The Mandela Rules Training Academy is the first facility in Africa dedicated exclusively to the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the treatment of prisoners, widely known as the Nelson Mandela Rules. The guidelines promote dignity, fairness and humane treatment for people deprived of their liberty. Jane Mary Ongolo, regional representative of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, said Mandela's legacy continues to shape global standards. She said Nelson Mandela himself spent more than 27 years in prison, and throughout his life he remained such a powerful advocate for fairness, justice and humane treatment of all people. Ramaphosa described the academy as a knowledge hub not only for South Africa, but for the wider Southern African region and the global correctional community. And still in Africa, Libya granted several foreign companies new oil exploration and production licenses for the first time in 17 years on Wednesday, after more than a decade of political instability, with oil and gas production and exports at their strongest since 2011. The North African country is seeking to draw major global energy companies back, but its oil industry has faced significant challenges since a NATO-backed revolt toppled and killed longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, with the country still divided between rival authorities. On the foreign scene, the U.S. House voted 219 to 211 on Wednesday to challenge President Donald Trump's tariffs on Canada, with several Republicans joining Democrats in a rare rebuke of his trade policy. The largely symbolic measure seeks to end the national emergency underpinning the tariffs and now the head of the Senate. The tally, 219 to 211, was among the first times the House, controlled by Republicans, has confronted the president over his signature policy and drew instant recrimination from Trump himself. The resolution seeks to end the national emergency Trump declared to impose the tariffs, though actually undoing the policy would require support from the president, which is highly unlikely. Meanwhile, Trump believes in the power of tariffs to force U.S. trade partners to the negotiating table, but lawmakers are facing unrest back home from businesses caught in the trade wars and constituents navigating pocketbook issues and high prices. And still on the foreign scene, Bangladesh's vote today in its first election since a deadly 2024 uprising, as parties crushed under Sheikh Hasina's rule returned to the fray with a powerful political heir facing an Islamic-led coalition. Queues stretched outside polling stations in the capital Dhaka as voting in the hugely anticipated election opened in the South Asian nation of 170 million people. Reports say more than 300,000 soldiers and police are deployed countrywide, with UN experts warning ahead of voting of growing intolerance, threats and attack, and a tsunami of disinformation, especially targeting millions of young first-time voters. Shiti Goswami, 21, a student at Dhaka City College, lined up early to vote to avoid the crowds. Leading Prime Ministerial hopeful Tariq Rahman, 60, is confident his Bangladesh Nationals Tea Party BNP can regain power, but he faces a stiff challenge from the Muslim-majority country's largest Islamist party, Jamaat-e-Islami. And still to come in the news. CAF begins stadium inspection for 2027 AFCON. Stay tuned for detail of this story and even more to come in a moment. Many thanks for staying tuned and welcome back to Spectrum News within the hour. Going now to the business scene, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has notified the public that Seplat Energy PLC, a joint venture partner of NNPC Limited and a key supplier of gas into the NNPC Gas Infrastructure Company Limited, NGIC pipeline network, has scheduled routine maintenance on its gas production facilities from 12th to 15th February 2026. NNPCL Chief Corporate Communications Officer Andrew Ode made this known in a press statement today. According to the statement, the planned activity forms part of standard industry safety and asset integrity protocols designed to ensure the continued reliability, efficiency and safe operation of critical gas infrastructure. And still in business, the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation has vowed to fully use its enhanced enforcement powers granted by the NDIC Act 2023 to recover outstanding loans from debtors of failed banks. This was disclosed by the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the NDIC, Thompson Oludare, at a sensitization seminar for debt recovery agents in Lagos under the theme Operationalizing the Provisions of the NDIC Act 2023 for effective debt recovery. The NDIC Act 2023 empowers the corporation to take interim custody of any movable or immovable property of an obligor identified as the bona fide owner of the said property. The same act empowers the NDIC to freeze the funds of an obligor of a failed insured institution with any insured institution. Oludare, who was represented by the Director of the Legal Department, Olufemi Kushimo, warned that the culture of loan defaults and protracted litigation used by debtors to stop payments will no longer be tolerated. In health, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control has dismissed as false a publication alleging that the federal government directed the agency to suspend enforcement actions relating to the regulation of sachet alcohol and 200 milliliters PET bottle alcohol products. The Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, in a statement described the publication as false, misleading, and does not reflect any official communication received by the agency from the federal government. She said NAFDAC operates strictly within the ambit of its statutory mandate and in alignment with duly communicated federal government policies and directives. Recall that it was earlier reported that the federal government directed NAFDAC to suspend all enforcement actions relating to the proposed ban on sachet alcohol and 200 milliliters PET bottle alcoholic products. And still in health, the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare has lifted the embargo on the salaries of health workers following the suspension of the strike by members of the joint health sector unions. A memo obtained by the reporters, which was signed by the Director overseeing Office of the Permanent Secretary, FMOH Dafeta Tetshoma, and addressed to the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, urged the lifting of the no work, no pay embargo on salaries in good faith. Recall that Johesu suspended their 84-day nationwide strike on February 6, 2026, following negotiations with the federal government. The strike, which began on November 15, 2025, over the non-implementation of the adjusted consolidated health salary structure, was paused to allow for the implementation of a new agreement. To sports news now, where the Confederation of African Football (CAF) has sent a team of technical experts to the three nations that will host the 2027 African Cup of Nations. The inspection visits by the technical experts, which started this week, will run until Tuesday, February 17th. It will include technical assessments covering pitch requirements, as well as safety, security and infrastructure readiness at key match and training venues earmarked for the use of the tournament. CAF's inspection form a broader strategy to raise standards on and off the pitch across African football. The main focus is to enhance AFCON's reputation among the leading football tournaments in the world. The inspection will begin in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and will continue with sites to Arusha and Zanzibar, among others. And still in sports, ticket prices for the 2026 World Cup have skyrocketed on FIFA's official resale platform, with seats for many matches listed at several times their face value, even though the tickets have only recently been distributed following the end of the main sales phase in January. Weeks after FIFA President Gianni Infantino warned that tickets made available on resale sites were likely to come with an exorbitant price tag, those fears have come to pass on World Football's own platform. As of Wednesday, a Category 3 seat, the highest section of the stands for the tournament's opening game between Mexico and South Africa at the Mexico City Azteca Stadium on June 11th, was listed at $5 compared to the original price at $895. One Category 3 seat for the World Cup final on July 19th at East Rutherford, New Jersey, meanwhile, was being advertised for an eye-watering $143,750, more than 41 times its original face value at $3,450. The cheapest available ticket for the final of the resale site was listed at $9,775. On our entertainment news, Nigerian Afrobeat singer Wizkid has criticized his senior colleague Tubaba for rating Burna Boy ahead of him on the global stage. Reports say Tubaba had recently, during an interview, shared his opinion on the popular Big Three, a term used to describe Wizkid, Davido and Burna Boy, who are celebrated as Nigeria's most dominant global music exports. Answering questions about the debate on who among the three musicians reigned supreme in the industry, Tubaba named Burna Boy as #1 Nigerian artist on the global stage. However, reacting to Tubaba's opinion, Wizkid, in a post on social media, described him as old man, asking Tubaba to make peace with his family before sharing his opinion about music. And that's all we have for you on the news at this hour. Very many thanks for staying with us through it all. Do well to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 4. I am Rita Inum. Enjoy the rest of your day.